Most first-time buyers think the hardest part of buying a condo in Kelowna is saving for the down payment, but that's not what usually kills the deal. What catches buyers off guard are the closing costs, the BC-specific taxes, the strata documents, the insurance details, and the little condo traps that don't show up on the listing page. And this is especially true if you are moving here from Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Ontario, because buying a condo in Kelowna is not the same game. You might be approved for the mortgage, you might have the down payment, you might even find the perfect unit. But if you don't understand the timeline and the cash you need before closing, you can still lose the condo or get hit with thousands of dollars that you were not expecting. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact step-by-step process of buying your first condo in Kelowna, from the first phone call all the way to getting the keys. And the part that most buyers miss happens before you even look at a listing. Because before you start shopping, you have to fix the math. The first call should not be to a realtor. It should be to a mortgage broker. And I know that sounds backwards coming from a realtor, but this is where first-time buyers either set themselves up properly or accidentally waste weeks looking at condos that they cannot actually close on. You need to know your real purchase price, your real monthly payment, and most importantly, how much cash you're going to need to complete the purchase. Because in BC, your down payment is not the only number that matters. One of the biggest surprises for buyers is the property transfer tax, also called the PTT. This is a cash at closing cost that is paid when you purchase a property in BC. And for buyers coming from provinces like Alberta or Saskatchewan, this can be a complete shock. You may be thinking, I have my down payment and I'm good. But then you find out that you're also going to need money for legal fees, adjustments, inspections, insurance, and potential property transfer tax. And that can change the entire deal. I have seen buyers find the unit they wanted, get excited, start mentally moving in, then realizing that they don't have enough cash set aside for closing costs. Not because they were irresponsible, but because nobody explained the BC math to them early enough. Now, there's another trap, GST. A lot of buyers think GST only applies to condos bought directly from the developer. But sometimes you can see a unit listed as resale and still have to pay GST if that unit has never been lived in. That one detail, it can completely change your numbers. And yes, there are exemptions and situations where some taxes may not apply, especially around brand new builds and first-time buyer programs. But the point is, don't guess. Before you fall in love with a condo, get your numbers checked by a mortgage broker. And make sure that your realtor understands the tax side well enough to flag these issues early. Because once the financial side is lined up, then we can start looking at condos. And this is where some buyers might accidentally buy the wrong condo. When first-time buyers start looking at condos in Kelowna, they usually start looking at price, lowest to highest. And that makes sense because you're trying to get into the market. But the cheapest condo is not always the best first condo. In fact, sometimes the cheaper listing is cheaper for a reason. One of the biggest traps is parking. You see a condo online, the price looks great, the photos look good, the location works. Then you dig into the details and you realize that it comes with outside parking or just random parking or sometimes no parking at all. That matters. Yeah, not just for your lifestyle, but for your future resale. Because when you eventually sell, the next buyer is going to care about the same thing. A condo with secured parking is usually going to be more attractive than one without it. The second trap is the one that I call the studio trap. A studio condo, it can look like the easiest way to get into the market. There's a lower price, lower payment, less cash needed up front. But here's the issue. A lot of first-time buyers, they grow out of these studio condos quickly. Your life changes, your work changes, maybe you start working from home, maybe you get into a relationship, maybe you just want to have a bedroom with a door that closes. And then when you go to resell, the buyer pool can be smaller than it would be if you had a one-bedroom. So in many cases, stretching into a one-bedroom is a much safer long-term move. Not always, because every situation and every person is different. But if the choice is between buying a studio just because it's cheaper or stretching slightly to buy a more functional one-bedroom, I usually recommend buyers, they understand the long-term difference. Because your first condo should not just be affordable today. It should still make sense when you need to sell it. But even if the unit checks every box, the location is right, parking, layout, the price is good, that still doesn't mean it's a good buy. Because The unit is only part of the purchase. The building itself, it can make or break the deal. And that is where the offer and strata review come in. Once you find a condo that makes sense, the next step is writing the offer. A lot of first-time buyers imagine this is just one clean moment. You offer, they accept, you're done. But in reality, there is usually a negotiation. You may go back and forth 3 or 4 times before the final price, the dates, the terms, and the conditions are agreed upon. And when the offer is accepted, that doesn't mean that you just bought a condo. In BC, most buyers will have what is called a subject period. Think of this as your due diligence window. This is negotiated, but it usually is going to be around 2 weeks. During that period, you're going to confirm that this purchase actually makes sense. Your financing gets finalized, you book a condo inspection. There is a cost to this, but it gives a lot of first-time buyers peace of mind, especially if you're going to be responsible for the furnace or if you want to make sure the plumbing is checked out. You're going to check insurance costs. You're going to review the strata documents, where you want to look at the depreciation report, the contingency reserve fund, all the meeting minutes to see if there are any issues in the building. This is one of the most important parts of buying a condo because you're not just buying your unit. You are buying into the building's financial health, the maintenance history, the rules, the risks, and the future expenses. A beautiful condo in a poorly managed building can become a nightmare. This is why strata document review matters so much. You want to know if there are upcoming repairs, lawsuits, insurance problems, special levies, low reserve funds, water issues, noise complaints, short-term rental issues, or anything else that could affect your ownership. And for first-time buyers, this can absolutely feel overwhelming. And that is normal. Your realtor should be reviewing these documents with you, explaining what matters, and helping you understand how well this building is run. And if at the end of that subject period, you make a decision, go or no go. If everything checks out, you remove subjects and you move forward. Now you bought a condo. If something does not feel right, you can walk away and keep looking. Now, another thing that first-time buyers often misunderstand is the deposit. In BC, your deposit typically is not paid the second your offer is accepted. It's usually paid after the subjects are removed. Your deposit is going to go into your buyer's realtor's brokerage's trust account, and it's going to be applied towards your down payment. So, for example, if your total down payment is $30,000, your deposit is $20,000. That doesn't mean that you now need $50,000. It means that the $20,000 deposit is going to form part of your down payment. And later, you'll bring in the remaining $10,000 plus closing costs to the lawyer that you're closing with. This is an important distinction because a lot of first-time buyers, they think that a deposit is an extra cost. It's not an extra cost, but you do have to have access to it at the time of writing an offer. So now subjects are removed, the deposit is in the trust account, and the deal is officially moving to completion. Now, we need to talk about the final timeline and what this condo is actually going to cost you every month. Most condo purchases in Kelowna will close in roughly 45 to 60 days from the time the offer is written. Now, that can vary depending on the seller, the buyer, the lender, and the terms of the deal. But 45 to 60 days is a common range. During that time, your lawyer or notary gets involved. Your lender is going to prepare the mortgage instructions. Your insurance is going to get finalized, and the final cash to close is going to be calculated. And this is where you don't want any surprises. You should already understand your down payment, your closing costs, your monthly mortgage payment, your strata fees, property taxes, insurance, and utilities. One of the nice things about Kelowna is that the property taxes are a lot lower than cities east of the Rockies. But you're also going to want to understand the strata fees and what they include. Sometimes strata fees include gas, which can be great if the condo has a gas fireplace because that can make the winter heating much more affordable. You may be able to heat a lot of the unit using the gas that's already included in the strata fees. Power is often pretty manageable too, but almost always you're going to pay it. When it comes to power, many condo owners, they might see electricity in the $80 to $110 per month range, depending on usage, season, and that unit. But insurance is where you need to be careful. You are not just getting basic condo insurance. You need to make sure that your personal condo policy, it includes proper coverage for the strata corporation's deductible. Because if your unit causes a water issue or some other insurable event and the building's deductible is high, you need to make sure that your policy is going to cover that deductible. This is why confirming insurance during the subject period is so important. Not after you remove subjects, before. By the time you get to closing, you should already know what your monthly expenses will be. These expenses are going to include your mortgage, your property tax, your strata fees, your insurance, and your utilities. This is the difference between buying with confidence and buying with crossed fingers. And this is exactly why I always recommend first-time buyers, they don't just start looking at random listings, they start with a plan. If you're looking at buying your first condo in Kelowna and you want somebody to walk you through the numbers, the timelines, the buildings, and the risks, there's a calendar link in the description. I can look at your situation and recommend the next steps. I can also provide you the name to a few mortgage brokers if you don't know any. So here's the simple version. Buying your first condo in Kelowna is not just about saving for the down payment. You need to understand the cash required to close in BC. You need to know whether GST or property transfer tax applies. You need to be careful with studios, parking, and resale value. You also need to make sure that you review the strata documents properly, and you need to know the real monthly cost. If you do those things in the right order, the process is going to become much less stressful. You're not guessing, you're not reacting, and you're not getting surprised halfway through the purchase. You are buying with a plan. And that is how you avoid becoming the buyer who finds the perfect condo, only to realize too late that the numbers don't work. So before you start looking for your first condo, get the math right. Understand the building. Make sure that the condo is the best one for you. And when you are ready to start that process, reach out. I would love to help. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.